Okay. Okay. Right click on any object and you will get a pie menu of all of its editable components. At the 12 o'clock position is edge. Edge defines a line between 2 points, and edges are very important in Maya because they define not only the edges between 2 points, but also the attributes of the surface, whether it's a sharp edge or a smooth area. And there are plenty of commands that allow you to edit. Edges, editing edges are what allow you to manipulate the cage to make the shapes you want. At the 1 o'clock position, 1 or 2 o'clock position is object mode, and that gets you out of editing sub-objects and back to manipulating the whole object. UV edits the UV coordinates for maps and textures, and we won't go into that now, but it is something you are definitely going to have to do. At the 4 o'clock position is multi. I don't know what that does, so I'm not going to deal with it. Face edits the face between, selects the face and edits the face between edges and vertices. And that will even allow you to select a face as a mask or a reverse mask item. If you're familiar with Photoshop masks, selecting a face will give you a reverse mask or allow you to perform operations only on that face. At the 8 o'clock position is vertex face. There's some use for it, but I haven't found it yet, so it's probably not worth talking about right now. And then finally at the 9 o'clock position is vertex. Those allow you to move individual points. So when you're moving things around in your mesh, you want to oftentimes switch between face, edge, and vert, depending on how much of the object you want to move, rotate, or scale. Because the tools, let's go back to object mode. W moves things. E allows you to rotate things and also rotate in weird directions. And R key is the hotkey for scaling. Now let's go ahead and scale this up until it covers all the plane. Now if you have to make some fine adjustments, you can go here to Vertex and grab a set, and you can use any of the manipulator tools on any of the selected verts. Now, when doing this method, you want to start with very rough shapes and work towards smoothness. So at that point you add only the detail you need. And when you're dealing with the initial primitives, you want to go up to Edit Mesh. This is going to be where you live when making Second Life objects. So you go to Edit Mesh and you go to Insert Edge Loop Tools. An edge loop is a path of edges along four-sided faces. Only four-sided. It doesn't work in five sides or three-sided. Go to edit. Okay. Ah, your toolbar. All right. Okay, there is animation, polygon, surfaces, dynamics, rendering, end dynamics, and customize. You were probably in surfaces, weren't you? Because you were doing editing sculpts. Go up to polygons and release, and you should get this. So then go to Edit Mesh and go to Insert Edge Loop Tool. And you select an already existing edge and it will put a loop in perpendicular to that edge and in between any other edges. And I'll just sort of demonstrate. There I've put an edge loop right in front of the canopy. And I will put one, well, as you can see, it's now selected. So I could actually scale that all the way down to the fuselage width, and then hitting the space bar, go to the top view. Well, it says top, but it's there, top view. And then you go back and you can hit another, you can hit the G key, and the G key is not going to work in this case because I hit a manipulator. But let's say I wanted to do a whole bunch of these real quick. I could go that, hit G, that, G, that, G, that, where the fillet begins at the beginning of the tail and at the top of the tail. And what you want to do is you want to, again, rough the shape out. Now there are a couple of ways that you could play with the scales on these. Hit the Q key to quit out of any commands you're doing. Anytime you do any of these edit mesh commands, when you're done, hit Q, unless you want to do one right again. And this is just a safety tip. So hold down the Control and Shift keys, click one edge segment, and then click one next to it, or double click, and it will select the whole edge loop. But as you can see, because the last one wasn't unselected, let's go ahead and unselect it. And then go to the top. Now occasionally you might run into this problem where all of a sudden your manipulators are missing. That's because the clipping plane of the camera is not in the right spot. So what you'll do is you go to Select Camera, select Camera. Oh, you can't because you're out of well, this will work. And you see how it says negative 989 on my screen for the camera? make that 1 meter above it, and that will give you your manipulators back. So Control Shift, click one, then click the other, double click. Oh, it gave me two. And just double clicking occasionally works too. And then you just go from the front and sides. Oops. For some reason I can't select that easily, so there we go. And now you can see you can quickly rough out a shape that you can work on. You can also move it . Actually, okay, so you can see fairly quickly that you can rough out a shape. Now, another point of modeling you need to learn is extrusions. And let's say we want to build the scoop. You can extrude anything in the sub-object menus. Now you saw how I selected everything I change my sub-object selection to face instead of edge, and then I go up to Edit Mesh and I go to the top one. Notice here there's a thing called Keep Faces Together. And before I do the extrude, I'll make a quick demonstration. Let's say I want to make a hand grenade. Okay. I have a sphere, and I want to make that into a hand grenade. Right now it's a disco ball. If I were to hit a normal extrude command, it would give me the faces coming out in some weird angle. But that is always based on the it's always based on the normal angle of the last face selected. So if I push it in, I'm going to get this very weird effect of a sphere inside a sphere. I don't know why that happens, it just does. But an extrusion is based on the normal angle of the face, and the normal angle is just the direction the face is facing. But if you can see this little round thing here, up here, when it's filled in, it's based on local coordinates of the normal. When you click it, it becomes hollow on the inside, and then the extrusion is based on world coordinates. So let's go ahead and undo all that. So with all the faces selected, if you go up to Edit Mesh and you uncheck Keep Faces Together, and then you hit Extrude and you make sure it's still on local, not world coordinates, and you pull, you can pull all of these out, and you can push them in. So if you're making like grills and stuff, push them in and then click on any of the boxes in front of the arrows, and then scale the faces down and you get one of these. Or if you just want to build a regular hand grenade, you pull them out, hit one of the boxes, and then scale the faces down this way. And there, you got a hand grenade. Extrude, edge loop is how you add detail. Extrude is how you add shape. And these are all very powerful tools. But we want to keep the faces together right now. So we're going to get rid of the sphere. And we're going to go back to the fuselage. And we're going to select these faces. We're going to hit Edit Mesh, Extrude. And because we want these to go straight down, we're going to hit the little indicator up in the upper right and hit it so it's hollow in the center and it goes to world coordinates. And we're just going to drag those faces down. And there we have the scoop. But that scoop goes in a little bit, so since the faces are all going in the same direction. There, we got the personality of the Stuka already coming together. So it goes a little deeper in there. And scoop happened. Exactly. Now here's another thing. Remember I told you how important the edge loop tool is? The edge loop tool works by picking out the distance between. So if I wanted to add a little more detail to round out that scoop, I could insert an edge loop. As you can see, it follows the contour of the scoop. And while it's still selected, I can move that up and down, and I could even scale it out just a little bit to add a little bit of that roundness to it. Now at some point though, you're going to have to go to cross sections. And once you have your rough shape out and you want to refine it, I'm not going to refine this any further, but let's say you want to go to face, go in the front view, and this is to save time. Hit Q to clear out of any other operations. And with face selected, select everything on the starboard side of the model, or port depending on it, and then hit delete. What this does is this does not change the pivot point of the model. It's still at the center of the universe, see? But it removes half the model. Here's how to do half the work to get the full amount. Go up to Edit, pull down to Duplicate Special, and hit the option box. For geometry type, hit Instance, and everything is referenced in channel boxes in Maya as X, Y, Z. Also RGB. So whenever you see any numbers that don't have any attributions to them, assume X, Y, Z. What you do is you hit scale as negative on the Y, and the Y is in the left-right direction. All vehicles in SL must face and be imported in with the X facing forward. And so you go Duplicate Special, and you now have a copy of the other half of your airplane. Now let's say you're working and you just don't want to keep hitting that starboard side of the plane. This is where what's called layers come into oh yes, I will show you that linkage in a second. Okay. What you can do is you can create a new layer just like in Photoshop. And as soon as you create it, double click on the text just like in Photoshop and go name it. Name it something. I'm going to name it offside because that's where everything's going to happen. You don't have any spaces and you only have 32 characters. So anytime you need a space, hit an underscore instead. Once you have that, you hit save. And with that offside still selected, you right click on the name offside and hit add selected object. And to know that you have it selected, hit the V. V is the same thing as the eyeball in Photoshop layers. And you can turn that on and off. But what this also allows you to do is make it unselectable. And the second box to the right of V has three states. The first one is T, and that's called a template layer. And that all you can see is the wireframe. But as you can see, I can't select that wireframe. That wireframe is completely unmodifiable by me. Or is it? The second click is called reference layer. And it looks like just your normal layer, except you can't click on it. But even if you are in reference or template, let's say I want to do an edit on the edge, everything I do to the port side happens to the starboard side in mirror fashion. So that's how you check your work. And any commands I do to one side happens to the other side. Yes, it auto mirrors. As you can see, you can rough out things pretty quick. But here's the thing. If you import this into Second Life normally, the offside, because it was scaled in the negative Y direction, it's going to show up inside out. So turn off the referencing. Once you have both sides where you want it, delete your reference. And because we built everything on the mirror, you go to another command called Mesh Mirror Geometry. And the option box says, I want to mirror this in the negative Y. I want to mirror it from port 2 starboard. And so I could, if I did it on the other side. The reason why this is important is because when you mirror the geometry, it mirrors it and welds it. So now it is all one object. So anything you mirror becomes the whole object. And this is important when you're doing like UV mapping. Because let's say you map the entire port side of your airplane, and then you do mirror geometry. It will also be mirrored. I mean, it will also be mapped. So you've just saved yourself twice the work. Except for one thing, you don't want to have mirrored. You don't want to have superimposed UVs in mesh. So what you would do then is you would select all the faces on the starboard side, and you would go into your UV editor, And you see how everything, there's half of everything there. Select all the UVs, hit that command, and now it's mirrored. And there, with a little bit of planning, you put everything on the port side of your UV map, and then after doing the mirror command, everything's over on the starboard. So again, you just saved half the work. But we'll undo. There. And we'll bring the instance back, and we'll bring the X-ray view back, because we have... Oh, this doesn't have the cross-section layers in it. Okay. A lot of ways that you're working is, the reason why you only have half is because you only have half of the cross sections. So this way everything keeps mirrored. Now I'm going to turn this off to X-ray off to show you a few other techniques. Another tool you're going to use a lot is called split polygon tool. Rather than doing a whole bunch of edges, this allows you to do individual faces. Actually, let's do this in a more reasonable manner. Let's say we want to copy this line of the canopy frame. So we'll go there, 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 and this only works from edge to edge. But this allows you to add detail. And when you're done, you hit the enter key and you get that. Whenever you hit the enter key and the operation fails, it means that you have crossed a face that doesn't work. So you need to go back and start again, but this is legal. So then I can go back here and refine my shape. And you can straighten things by selecting a row of verts and then scaling them. If I want to round that out a little more, I do that, and then I move it into place. And always tumble and check your work so you know everything's going in the right direction. As you can see here, it didn't. This didn't work. So what I can do is I can go to vertex, select that, and because it's only on one edge, I can delete it. Then I can go back to the split polygon tool. And hit that. And then I can hit this individual vertex and just pull that into shape. Okay. I tend to start when I model from the simplest shapes that I think I can get away with, like cylinders, cubes, flat planes even, because I can always add detail. Now let's say I want to add in that cut for the canopy. I'll select these faces, and then I'll go into one of the orthographic views, and in X-ray I can see the line where that goes, and I go to Edit Mesh and I go to Cut Faces tool, and this will cut through faces regardless of the underlying geometry. So it's a tool to be used carefully. Anything along that line will become a line. And then when I release, I now have that line. But let's say I want to keep adding detail. So go back to the cut faces, and if you hold down the shift key, it will snap in 45-degree angles, like angle snap. And then I pick the next one and do the same thing. Oops. As you can see, I didn't quit out of the command and it cut another face. So undo, hit Q to get out of it, and then deselect what you don't want to cut. Remember what I said about masking and reverse masking. And then I go back to cut faces again. And I'm not really seeing it because the image got blurred. Oops. You can see I can cut faces there, but actually in that case I think I want to cut face, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Hit Q to quit out. Now let's say you get something that looks a little awkward like this. You want to keep your mesh as four-sided or three-sided as possible. And right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. This isn't good. What we want to do is make everything four-sided or three-sided. So what you can do is you go to Vertex, select that one vertex, hit W for the movement, but then you hold down the V key, and V key stands for vertex snap. So when that square in the manipulator goes to a circle, that means it's in a snap mode. So you go bang right there. Then what you do is you select both. Just go ahead and marquee select, and you go to Edit Mesh and you go to Merge. And I'm going to hit the option box to show you this. I have it down to a 0.5 millimeter snap. Anything less than a 0.5 millimeter is not going to show up in Second Life unless it's right in somebody's face or it's jewelry on a naked chick's neck. So when you have that, you hit Merge. And what that does is that welds all the faces together, and it gives you four sides. You know, let's say I don't like this little triangle over here. You can also do this command, and you go to Edit Mesh and you hit Collapse, and this is on face, and that brings that whole face down to a point. The problem is I have this is now three-sided, so I'm just going to have to live with that. Actually, no, I don't. let's do this. Edit mesh, insert edge loop, and go bang. And notice it added an edge between this three-sided and this three-sided, making them now all four-sideds. And with that four-side selected, still, I can use that to refine the curve if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. But that's how you can control how edge loops propagate, is by terminating edges in 3 sides or 5 sides. Now let's say you want to do all the canopy glass. How you would do that, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that edge loop that I did because it's distracting. And unfortunately, because this is 2, or is it, no, it's 1, I can do this. I'll select all these faces, and I'll go up to Edit Mesh, turn off Keep Faces Together, hit the Extrude button, and then hit the little thing to make it scale in World. Oops. That was a mistake. Do not do that. Scale it so it's all local. Oops. And scale it vertically. Let's see some of the other Edit Mesh commands. Let's say you make a mistake or there's a gap in your model. This is another useful tool. This is called Append Polygon. And what this does is that from any edge, and if you notice, there's an edge in the center where the two halves are. You can go either from one edge to the other to make a triangle, or hit backspace if you make a mistake and go from one edge to the other edge and make a quad. And that fills in your holes. What the hell happened? Oh. And if you keep hitting G each time you finish it, you can go automatically to the next one, so you can fill in holes or gaps rather quickly. See? But you can see here there's an edge problem. Now how you'd fix that is you go back to Vertex, hit Q, then W, and then hold down the V key as you move the verts back into position. Then you select both of them, and anything within a half-meter radius that's selected will merge together. But if they're not within it, they'll merge in place or not do anything. What you don't want to do is you don't want to do this one, merge to center, because then everything comes to a point and messes up your work. And you're going to be making mistakes. One, because you're learning, and two, you're going to be working fast. Okay, I'm going to stop the stream for a second. I'll be right back.